So we've got some breaking news that's just coming in. NATO has now confirmed that the missile that hit Poland in the early hours of Thursday morning is a Russian missile. So authorities have been investigating a 10-metre-wide crater at a site that's around 50 kilometres from the border with Ukraine. Poland's Prime Minister, Donald Tusk, who travelled to the site, said there was no reason to believe that Poland was the target. He said the military appeared to have responded correctly to the incident, but it would be the subject of a thorough investigation. Now, from NATO, we have heard in response to a Russian missile of currently unknown type that entered Polish airspace and later crashed into Polish territory, one of many missiles fired by Russia at Ukraine overnight. NATO and Poland activated their air and ground defences. NATO is in close contact with the Polish authorities about the violation of Poland's airspace. So DW correspondent Teri Schultz is in Brussels. She can tell us more about all of this. Teri, tell us, what else is NATO saying about this?
That's right, Anya. This statement comes from Colonel Marty O'Donnell, who is the spokesperson for the Supreme Allied Commander and for SHAPE, which is NATO's military headquarters. And it is striking that the first sentence of this statement that he gave me said that it is a Russian missile, because, of course, that's something that we've been looking at all morning since this incident happened. Where did this missile come from? Was it a misguided one from Ukraine, as we've seen in the past, or was it Russian? And this, of course, does raise the stakes even higher. As you noted, there is no indication that Russia targeted Poland. That would not be a smart move by the Russian government, because, of course, then you run the risk that you do, give a cause for Article 5 if a NATO country is attacked purposefully. There is no indication that that is the situation at the moment. But
so just to clarify, Teri, so Article 5, just clarify again for our viewers what Article 5 is and what happens in that case.
Article 5 is NATO's ultimate guarantee that if one country is attacked, all of them will come to its defense. And we really shouldn't be talking about Article 5 in this case. Nobody's been killed, and there's no indication that Poland itself is under attack because of a single missile. But this is something that, of course, Russia would have to keep in mind if it were to target a NATO country. And that's something that always comes up. Now, what we could be looking at, and we don't know yet whether Poland is planning to do this, is Article 4. Those are consultations that a country can call if it feels that its territorial integrity or sovereignty is threatened. It is a far cry below Article 5, and remains to be seen whether Poland does intend to call its NATO colleagues into one of these special councils at NATO headquarters.
OK, so Poland has not yet requested consultations with NATO because of this, despite knowing that this is a Russian missile.
As far as we know. And again, this is something that it's a sensitive situation, because you don't want to call Article 4 consultations about everything. They have generally refrained from doing that when the drones cross into NATO territory, for example, because it becomes meaningless if you're doing this, every day. And let's look at what's been happening in Romania this week. Drones have crossed the border almost every day. So you can't, they use this very sparingly. I'm certain that, Poland is considering it, but they will wait to see whether they feel that they were really targeted and whether a single missile does constitute a threat to its territorial integrity or sovereignty.
Does this incident, however, change NATO's air defence posture along its eastern flank, would you say?
Well, I would say that's already heightened, due in no small part to the fact that Ukraine, right across the border from NATO countries, is constantly under attack by dozens of missiles and drones and, constant air barrage. So NATO has taken measures to strengthen its own air defenses and its missile defenses. When this incident happened last September, when more than 20 drones crossed into Polish airspace, NATO set up what it calls Eastern eastern sentry, and that is making sure that all of the air defenses and missile defenses that are already stationed along the eastern flank are coordinated. They've stepped up even some of the abilities to share information, to decide under what circumstances they would marshal what resources in the air or on the ground. So I would say that NATO's eastern flank air and missile defense is already on pretty high alert. At the same time, that raises the question of why it didn't catch this missile then.
Right. And I mean, you're talking about a situation of NATO being on high alert. Looking ahead, I mean, how concerned is NATO about, the risk that other missiles are going to cross into alliance territory during, any future large Russian attacks on Ukraine?
They're extremely concerned because it doesn't matter if a missile was purposely sent into territory or not if it kills people on the ground. So, of course, those countries along the eastern flanks have constantly called for more NATO air defense because a lot of these countries don't have the capacity to mount this kind of defense themselves. The Baltic states, for example, their air defense is covered by NATO and not by their own air forces. So it's something that is of really constant and heightened concern when you see these kind of things happen. And now that Ukraine is coming under intensified ballistic missile attacks by Russia, it just raises the possibility that one of them will go astray and cross into NATO, as we seem to have seen now overnight in Poland.
Thanks so much for bringing us up to date, Teri. That's DW's Teri Schultz in Brussels. So what do you think? How do you think NATO should respond to Russia's latest violation of Poland's airspace? Let us know in the comments. But for the moment, it's goodbye from me. Thanks for watching.